Good morning. My name is Sheila Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, Insuring Your Craft Beverage Business, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the Virginia SBDC Craft Beverage Assistance Program Manager, Chris Van Orden.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this conversation about insuring your craft beverage production business. As Sheila said, my name is Chris Van Orden. I'm the manager of the Craft Beverage Assistance Program at the Virginia SBDC at George Mason University. The CBA program is designed to provide industry-specific guidance to Virginia's craft beverage sector. Today's program is going to be a free-flowing conversation about why and how producers can work with the insurance industry to mitigate risk. You'll be able to enter any questions you have in the Q&A function, not the chat. That doesn't work as well, Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer them all during or after the webinar. So today I'm excited to welcome our speaker, Kyle C. Rheiner, a certified insurance counselor, agency principal, and food and beverage practice leader at Arthur Hall Insurance in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Kyle has over 25 years experience in the hospitality industry, along with actually brewing and distilling craft beverages himself. Since 2013, Kyle has become the trusted insurance advisor for over 150 craft beverage makers in the U.S. He's also the host of the Beer Mighty Things podcast, a craft beverage business library with over 25,000 downloads, including interviews with industry leaders throughout the world. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, thanks for having me. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, really appreciate you being here. I think, before we kind of dig into the topic at hand here, you have a really interesting background. Could you just share a little bit of how you came to work in and with the craft beverage industry?
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. Looking forward to helping some folks today. Hopefully, everyone gets to take a nugget or two home with you and apply it to your business. The hospitality world is kind of all I've ever known. And my mother served tables and bartended her whole life. So then, I saw that and I was bussing tables at like 10 years old. I don't even know if that was legal, but I was doing it. And, as I got older, I served. And then when I was old enough to bartend, I bartended all through college and even after college, once I was even in, the professional world. But, in college, I got a job at a brewery where we had to learn the brewing process, understanding beer. And I was already, at that point in college, like I wasn't like a Miller Lite drinker. I always liked a little more flavor, be it a Guinness or a Yingling or something with a little extra. And then obviously the craft beer world kind of took off from there. But, again, I learned a lot about beer, fell in love with it, graduated, got a job in the financial services world. I did that for about 7 years and I was insurance licensed at that point. But then I quit after 7 years. I had a newborn baby doing the whole commute, hour and a half each way. Like, for what? I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So, like I said, I left that job to become an independent insurance agent. I really like, tangible things that you can touch and feel and insure. And, from there, I paired my insurance knowledge with my hospitality knowledge. I saw kind of a boom that was potentially going to happen in the craft beverage space. And kind of the rest is history. I'm passionate about it. I love it. I don't have to shave. I get to wear jeans. Life is good. So that's where we are. I'm now, as you mentioned, an agency principal. So I became an owner of our insurance agency, and I've been an independent agent now 12 years.
Love it. That's great. It's always nice to have somebody who knows the industry from the inside, as well as the value that you bring, which is the insurance, something very important to get right. So. Yeah. As we kind of dig into this, can we start out by just setting the stage? Just if you can give us an overview of the main types of insurance that all producers can or should, or I guess maybe even must carry.
Yeah. from like a must standpoint, right? A lot is going to be dictated by a contract you might have with a distributor or even a lease with your landlord, right? So that's going to dictate some of that stuff. But that main thing, everybody knows, all right, I need general liability, right? We need liquor liability if we're going to produce or furnish alcohol. Those are going to cover third-party claims, right? So bodily injury or property damage to others, right? That does not cover us. Those are covering others. So that's your trip and fall. That's your vehicle accident caused by alcohol, whatever it might be. So damage or injury to others. Now, when we want to cover our stuff, we get more into kind of the property side of the insurance. So when we talk property, it's not just physical, tangible stuff, but it's business income, right? Business interruption coverage. It's going to be your spoilage, contamination. It's going to be the physical stuff also, your tanks, the liquid in the tanks, the bar you built, the tables and chairs and glassware, your POS system. We have a very litigious society, right? So that umbrella coverage, optional but recommended and a lot of times required by contract. That's going to give you, it's a really affordable way to hit some increased limits on your policies. If you're driving, right, you need auto coverage, even if you're not driving, even if you don't own the vehicles, right? Like it's my personal vehicle, using it on behalf of the business to run to the bank, run to get groceries, whatever. That's an auto coverage you want to protect others in the event that you injure them or hit their vehicle, right? That property damage component. And then in the craft beverage space, right? So not every insurance agency has access to, an independent agent has access to different insurance carriers. There's only a few insurance carriers in the country that really insure breweries well, right? So there's specific coverages for the craft beverage space that not every agent has access to, not every company offers. And then sometimes if you don't ask for it, you don't get it, right? So that's why it's important to kind of have that niche agent who understands what you're doing. But we're talking about implosion of tanks. We're talking about spoilage and contamination, withdrawing your product from the marketplace because your cans are leaking or the product is bad. So that's kind of called your commercial package, and then you have the enhancements to it. A commercial package is more specific to like a manufacturing company or some sort of, just a more riskier type of business. The other kind of insurance policy would be called like a BOP, a business owner's policy. That's kind of your Main Street boutique type of business. So commercial package, liquor liability, general liability, property insurance, and that's kind of your baseline.
Yeah, it's a lot to make sure, if you haven't worked in this space yourself, or maybe you're, starting up your own company for the first time, you're not really fully aware. It's great to know just
I've had situations where other insurance agents call me and go, hey, my personal lines client, I've done their home and auto my whole life, but now they're opening a brewery. I don't know what to do. Can you help them? Right?
Yeah.
It's a different animal. It's almost three businesses in one because you have the manufacturing, you have the hospitality component of the, the front of house and the serving, right? You have people dining there essentially. So it's a couple different businesses in one.
Yeah. I feel like everybody
workers' compensation. If you have employees, you are required to have workers' compensation in most states. I think there's only Texas would be the one. I think they don't make it mandatory. But if you have employees, W-2 or 1099, you got to have some workers' comp. And also, as a beverage maker, there are surety bonds that are required as well.
Great. A question came in, and this is right. Speaking in generalities, let's just say sort of absolute bare minimum. Somebody says, if you're selling around $1 million in wine annually, what is the typical cost or price range for some of these policy types? Also for brewing, I know it's kind of hard because all of this is going to say depends, but
yes and no. So it's a great question. The way that the insurance is for a manufacturer of anything, whether it's screwdrivers or alcohol, you're going to be based on sales, right? So, and you're also going to kind of be based on where you're located. Are you near the coast? Are you in rural? I know a lot of like vineyards are nowhere near a fire department or a fire hydrant, right? So that changes things. Are you serving that $1 million of alcohol on premises? Is that being consumed on premises, or is that being consumed elsewhere? It's being sold out the door through a distributor or through a state store, something like that. That all kind of varies. A good rule of thumb, I think, is, take your sales figure and budget about 2 to 2.5% of that figure, and that'll probably be around your insurance cost. if that $1 million is 100% going out the door, maybe you're looking at a 1.5% of that sales would be your insurance cost. But it's a good ballpark. If you're looking at a loan or something, kind of go on that higher 2.5% to kind of, because you don't ever want to go back to a bank and ask for more money, right? So if, hey, we need less than what we budgeted, cool. But yeah, you can have if you have a $4 million building, or if you have, $4 million of payroll and a fleet of vehicles, that's going to skew that number up. All right. So, but a general, hey, I got a tap room, my vineyard, $1 million, 1.5 to 2.5% is going to be in that bucket, somewhere in there, most likely.
That's helpful. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I know it can be hard, but right, if you
Yeah,
get a
there's a
quote
lot
from
of factors.
somebody and it's nowhere in keeping, if it's 0.5% or if it's 8%, you can say, whoa,
Right.
we need to, there's something
There,
off here.
yeah. So I'll, that's one of the first things I'll do is, if I'm looking at somebody's policy, hey, we want you to help us out. What do you think? I'll go right to, hey, what are your sales? What's your premium? And go, all right, hey, you're at 4.5%. There's a good chance I can help you there.
Yeah.
That seems off. Or what else is going on? Did you have a number of claims? Do you have some severe claim? Do you have repetitive claims?
Yeah.
What's going on? So there's a lot to the story.
Yeah. It's that's where all the magic comes in with what you do, but
Yep.
it's a great rule of thumb. So
Yeah.
let's say there's somebody who's in the market, right? For insurance, whether it's a new business that they're just getting insured or if they want to start shopping around. Before you meet with a client, what information do you really want them to have in hand? Do you want them to share with you just to get that conversation started?
Say it's a new venture, you want to see a pro forma, right? Do you have a business plan? Because if you don't have prior experience, the underwriter is always going to look for, hey, what have they done before, right? Tell me about the management team. Where are they going and how are they going to get there? So pro formas, resumes, if you've never had insurance before. If you have had insurance before, then we're going to look at your claims history. We call them loss runs. So they're going to usually ask for 5 years of loss runs. If you've only been in business 3 years, that's fine. But the report will show, hey, you had a property claim, you had a tank collapse, you had a vehicle claim, a workers' comp injury, those sorts of things. Or it'll say no claims for these periods, right? So a lot of people say, hey, well, we haven't had any claims. That's great. That's awesome. But we do need that supporting document. You got to have an open mind, right? We're here to help guide you. We're a partner with you. There are times where people will say, hey, I just need general liability insurance. Like, no, you don't. You need, there's more to it, So have that open mind. Obviously, people don't love insurance because they pay for it. It goes up every year and they, hopefully they don't use it. It's a weird concept of buying something we'll never use, hopefully, right? But it's there in case something happens. You want to have the gross sales and payroll data from the last 12 months. And also, we're going to use that to predict where we're going for the next 12 months. All right. We really, as mentioned, your policies are based on sales. So if we don't have a sales figure to go off of, we really can't rate this up. The value of the stuff under the roof. What's the value of your building if you have to insure it? What is if it's like a historic property, have we had it appraised? When did you, and this is kind of the piece that most people don't know, and without asking a landlord, but when was the plumbing, wiring, heating, HVAC, roof updated? Now, if you're doing those things yourself, when those happened, right? Hey, we just renovated this property, 2023, we're ready to go, everything's new, floor drains, everything, that's all ready to go. But that's kind of that data sometimes, like, I don't know when the roof was, done. So, all right, well, let's connect with the landlord, or there is some things that we can pull off the internet, but it's always best, the landlord will give you that information. That'll help you out greatly. So sales data, payroll data, information about the property. Underwriters really can't provide, accurate proposals without those and that claims history, and claims happen. We know. That's why we have insurance, and that's why, actuaries price these things out. But when we do have claims, that's okay. How is your insurance agent helping you to discuss those claims? What happened, when, why, how, and what are we doing to prevent those from happening in the future? And that's what we take to an underwriter and paint that picture. Hey, here's this company, here's where they're going. They have had claims, but here's how they fixed them. Here's the staff, the management, and hey, they have low turnover. These folks have followed these managers from, so we create the story for the underwriters and make them feel warm and fuzzy. So we can get the coverages at the price we want. So that's, when it comes to insurance too, it's like my relationship with my beverage maker is as important as my relationship with my underwriter, right? So the underwriter can say, no, I'm not going to give that coverage. So when we write 150 breweries and distilleries and we send in a submission to an underwriter, they're like, okay, hey, Kyle doesn't send us, bad business, right? These folks must know what they're doing. We're going to pop him to the top of the pile. We're going to give him what he asked for because we know the quality of the submission. He's been doing this 12 years, that sort. So like that becomes that relationship also. So yeah, trust, open mind, sales figures, property values, payroll figures. There's a lot that goes into it. And that's kind of, sometimes that can be the reason of people like, I don't feel like doing this, right? It could be a lot of work. So
Yeah.
it's
There,
almost
there are other
easier.
industries that are a little bit easier to get into than this
It's
one.
almost easier to not do some of these things. Like that's why a lot of people just let their insurance renew and just whatever, because it takes time. It's work.
But yeah, if you're shave a percentage point, right?
Yeah.
Or
And if you're working with the right people and you do it once, right? Like,
yeah.
versus a lot of people will do their own, licensing paperwork, and then it comes back because they did it wrong and they should have just paid the attorney in the first place who specialized. You get it done once, it might have cost you a little bit extra up front, but it didn't cost you twice. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yes. And this is, you certainly don't want to think that you're covered or under something, and then turns out you're not. So it's interesting to hear that it's a combination of, right, metrics, right? You have actuaries involved. This is numbers driven, but it's also relational, right?
yep.
There is a storytelling element here.
Oh, yeah.
So just keep that in mind as you're going to work with an insurance provider. So for, let's say, the companies in planning, right? Folks who are not yet open, they want to start working with an insurance broker, like what should they be thinking about when in their process of opening should they start that engagement? How do they identify somebody? Sort of, how do you suggest somebody get started if they're not yet open?
The earlier the better. I work with people who sometimes are I'll say 90 days. People are about 18 months out from moving into their location, right? They have a lease maybe that, please send your lease to your insurance agent before you sign it. There's times where it's like, all right, hey, they want a $10 million umbrella. Okay, well, that's going to cost you an extra $18,000 a year. And they're going, oh, well, we didn't know that. We're like, okay, well, you signed the lease, but let's see if we can negotiate that. So we'll go through and we'll look at some of those things before you sign. But months ahead of time, because honestly, we like to do our renewals about 90 days, 120 days before the renewal period, because it's not Geico. There's a physical underwriter who has a pile of 100 businesses on their desk that they have to work on, right? So we want to give them time to do it. A rushed underwriter is, that's not how you want to operate. Okay. They're not going to give you the coverage or the pricing you want. They're going to get it off the desk as soon as possible. Right.
Mhm.
So months ahead, again, before signing that lease. And also, again, where are you located? Are you on the beach in Virginia, or are you, in the mountains of, like Western North Carolina? Like, so where are you? And that's going to have an indication on how many insurance companies are interested in your business. Or are you 100% on premises alcohol sales, or are you 100% off premises sales? Those factors indicate, what companies may be interested. Ask around, hey, the other beverage makers in town, maybe they have a good agent they like and recommend.
Mhm.
Ultimately, you wouldn't call like a roofer to do the plumbing, right? So you want to have somebody who's going to niche, knows what they're doing. Again, do it right the first time, makes it a lot easier. And independent agent is going to be somebody who has options versus, say, like, you have say like a State Farm, right? They only insure State Farm, that's their option. So
Mhm.
independent agents have options. And I'll toot my own horn, but I'm a CIC, right? I'm a certified insurance counselor. So I've taken a number of additional exams, right? So we dive into case law, we dive into reading policies. So we look for somebody with some additional training in the insurance world.
Yeah, that's good to know. It's good to know, like, that, how early on it
Well,
should be, right? I mean, it's
earlier the better.
order of operations can be so hard in the opening stages of this stuff, right? When do I find my facility? When do I start my filing of my permits? And there are people whose job it is to shepherd you through that process.
And
But
also, the kind of a rule of thumb too is when it comes to applying for your license, the rule of thumb is that you should already have your surety bond in place. So that's when you're engaging an insurance agent again, long before you sign a lease, long before, the paperwork is done. You might need that surety bond, right? So that could be, say, $5,000 face amount. It costs $100 a year. It's easy to do. I guess if you special, there's a lot of confusion around the bonds too.
Mhm.
So we have, we have options. We make it easy. I think that's kind of the beauty of specializing. I kind of do for the most part one thing, and I know where to go. I know who to call. We have the relationships. We can get it done quick. Um, but there are times where people are like, "Hey, I called 4 insurance agents. No one's called me back," or they keep making me complete these documents, and I want to rip my hair out. And
Mhm.
then in 24 hours, we get them what they need, and like, oh, we should have called you first. So it's specializing is important. It truly is. It'll help you save your headaches.
Yeah, we find the same thing in the capital provider space, right? There
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
lenders, you know, many lenders out there, people who have an experience working with the industry, understand
Yep.
how it works, whether they are, specifically targeting this audience or they just have been through it before.
Yeah.
They're going to get right. It's, as everybody listening in knows, is a very complex industry. It sounds like it's fun, but it's light manufacturing, is agricultural value add, it's hospitality.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts here, and it's hard to explain that to people who may not have had, may not have touched the industry before.
Yep.
So it's really helpful to know that there are people who have these very particular skill sets and especially quantifying risk for this industry.
For sure.
So, right, that's the kind of like early stage companies, maybe not yet up and running, companies that are, already selling. Maybe if we're talking about somebody who's working with you or working with an insurance provider already, um, how should they be interacting with their insurance provider when things are going smoothly? Are there, this sort of like evolving relationship? It's nice when it's set it and forget it, but are there things that they should be doing, especially as they expand into new areas? If they can, hey, I'm starting to distribute for the first time, or I'm going interstate, or whatever. When should they be cycling back around and scheduling another conversation?
For sure. Great question. I would say that the set it and forget it model a lot of times will lead you to getting a big audit later, right? So, hey, we set this payroll, we set these sales figures in place, and now all of a sudden we got this big chunk of money that we owe because we outperformed and we hired, right? So I don't like surprises. So in terms of speaking and communicating with your insurance agent, at least twice a year, right? So, what we like to do, I mean, a lot of our touches are about 4 times a year, or, there's a monthly text I'll send out to some key folks that, I know they're moving around. I know that they purchase things and they don't tell us, right? So, making sure that we are communicating. But, you know, we'd like to have that mid-year review. All right, 5, 6 months in the policy, here's what we projected, here's where we're trending. Do we need to edit the policies, sales and payroll now, so we don't get that big bump later that we owe and we're surprised about, especially after we just paid our down payment on the renewal. Now we have another 12 grand we owe, and we got to somehow pay our employees, right? How do we do that? So that's communication. As we grow, I mentioned stay ahead of that whole, hey, we're gonna, right now we have our main location is in Alexandria, but our next one's going to go to Virginia Beach. Well, if you're within 2 miles of the coast with that location, that same insurance carrier may not be interested in doing location number 2,
Hmm.
right? So we need time to pivot on that. Um, as you grow, you may be more likely to, cause more attention to like cyber attacks, right? Make sure that as you grow with your employees, you have some sort of cyber hygiene training to go, hey, don't click those links. Hey, identify phishing, make sure you're looking at that email address. We have the reckoning that went through the craft beverage space a couple of years ago regarding sexual harassment, wrongful termination, discrimination, right? So those are employment practices liability policies. We just saw in North Carolina, unfortunately, gentleman had fallen through the roof of Wooden Robot Brewery and passed away. Had a newborn baby at home, right? So now we want to think about key person life insurance, or making sure that your operating agreements are intact, right? The value of the brewery when you started is probably different than where it is now. You may have new loans out. What happens if a key member is disabled or passes away? Are you able to, satisfy those loans? Do we want this spouse now has to work with the business. Do they want to? Do you get along? Those are lots of things that happen. Directors and officers, if you have a board, right? That's another, the board's making decisions on behalf of the business. Are we, do we have the coverage for that? That's a more breach of contract type of situation, non-tangible, not damage. But hey, we said we were going to contract, manufacture, X amount of barrels, gallons, pallets with this manufacturer, and we pull out early. Okay, well, now that's a breach of contract. Do you have the coverage for that? Again, coming back to the locations, think about, is this a production facility or is this going to be a outdoor space with heavy on-premises consumption? And, those are some, do we need to add vehicles, right? So, do we have trained drivers? Do you have a program for that? GPS, do we have handbooks? Right? And these are a lot of things that we can supply. A lot of the insurance carriers will provide them, because it's part of your premiums that you pay. I would say they're free, but you're paying your premium, so they come with that. So you are paying for them, utilize them. Your insurance carrier's website's going to have videos and trainings, and if you're a sizable company, they'll send trainers out to your location to, discuss whatever it is you want to work on.
Yeah, that's great to know. It's sounds like a lot of people are probably underutilizing the resources that are out there.
For sure.
And yes, I can imagine that how painful it is when all of a sudden you think you're being successful, you're growing, and then you realize you're undersized on your insurance, and you get
or
Yeah.
people, the beverage makers are some of the most creative people I've ever met. I love entrepreneurs. I consider myself an entrepreneur just ever since high school, college. I've always, been into building something on my own. So, to build up this book of business that I've been able to grow, like there's things that you're not ready for, or, these, beverage manufacturers will, hey, we bought this truck, we bought this forklift, we were doing this, we're sharing a canning line with this other company down the street. If we don't know about it, it's really hard to insure it. There are some kind of catch-all coverages that can exist, but communicate. I always say, like, I have a document that says, when to call your insurance agents. Pretty much anytime you're thinking, doing, selling, leasing, moving, whatever, like anything any verb, just call us, shoot me a text, like, let's talk about it. I don't have billable hours, so we're here to help, and let's talk through some of these things. Sometimes we don't have to do anything, but it's good to know,
Yeah. This is what I always tell people when it comes to regulators too, is the thing they really don't want is to be surprised. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
They feel like they're out of the loop.
Yeah. You don't want an OSHA
That's
fine
different.
or something like that. I mean, they add up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of coverages, and this might be a tougher one. Are there any policies that you see producers carry that you think might be superfluous, or hey, don't worry about that yet? Or do you ever advise clients that not to carry something?
So that is a good question. It's hard to be an insurance nerd and say you don't need it.
Mhm.
And insurance. So if we think about risk management, insurance is just one piece. All right. So there's three ways to manage risk. One, to self-insure, right? Not buy an insurance policy. Hey, we have enough cash on hand. We can weather the storm. I don't think there's many beverage makers out there that can do that. Number two is to transfer to an insurance policy, right? Buy a policy, pay a deductible, let the insurance company take care of the rest, or avoid doing that thing, right? Avoid whatever it might be that you're questioning. So that's three ways to manage risk. What I have seen in a recent scenario was now a client, but prior, they just went online and bought all their coverage. They had like $8 million limits in this, coverages they didn't need over here, things that didn't make sense from a lot of like the directors and officers type stuff. $7 million cyber policies, but not having an online store, right? Like, so you don't have to go that high, but that's why our goal is to be an advocate and an advisor here. Like, okay, it's good to have that coverage, but those limits do not make sense with the size of your company. That landlord wants a $10 million umbrella. Well, I can show you data that the majority of the businesses in this area have a $2 million umbrella or a $5 million. Like, let's negotiate that. Let's use some industry benchmarks. So that's kind of what we'll see. I can't say, hey, don't buy this coverage, right? You don't need this coverage because it probably exists because something happened at some point that it needed to exist. But your coverage limits may be off. Your deductibles may be off. the way people value different, there's a couple different ways to value your property insurance. So just saying, hey, I just need property insurance at $300,000 worth of equipment, we're good. Like, well, there's depreciation or not, or, co-insurance penalties. So there's different ways to do things, different levers to pull. And that's why I mentioned like having somebody who's taken more than one insurance course, right? We start to dig into some of those things. Sometimes you can pay an extra $12 and get way more coverage, right? Just the way it's structured. So knowing those things is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think, you know, not saying that like a policy is ever wrong, right? Like you said, if these tools exist, there must be a reason. You don't just invent a solution for a non-problem in general. But, I could see, like you said, if somebody's taking on a policy that mitigates a risk for a line of business that they don't pursue currently, right? If you're not distributing insurance that is targeted towards, third-party sales,
Yep.
may not be appropriate yet. But it's more of an issue of scaling, just taking an off-the-shelf solution or accepting the numbers that are there rather than working through it to say, well, that sample policy was for a brewery 5 times your size,
Right.
and this additional risk exposure that you don't have. Don't just accept it whole.
Right. Yeah. Don't go online and just buy your beer manufacturing insurance policy from a computer. That's
that's a good one.
That's scary. It might be cheap or whatever, but a lot of times you pay for what you get. So it could be cheaper for a reason.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, let's say we're this fictional company we're kind of walking through here, producer, right, lines up there in different policies. They're feeling pretty good. Something goes wrong. That could be anything, right? It's anything that they're able to insure against. And they need to file a claim. What steps can they take? How can they prepare to make sure that that process of filing is as effective and painless as possible?
So we always want to promptly notify, right? We want to take stock of what happened. There are checklists. So, if we have an injured employee, there's a checklist. Who, what, when, where, why, what body part. There's a lot of times like an image of a body, and you could circle that part and we submit that claim. Every insurance policy also, nobody reads it, but there's a page in there that says, your duties in the event of a loss. Right. So goal 1, make sure everybody's safe. Goal 2, prevent further damage from happening. If you have, hey, your roof caved in, well, let's try to get a tarp up there to prevent further water from coming in or whatever it might be. Or your sprinkler is spraying all over the place. Well, let's move all the cardboard away from that so it's not all damaged, right? So prevent further damage. Promptly notify your insurance agent or call the insurance company directly. Say it's Saturday night. Insurance agencies are typically closed, right? We work just Monday through Friday, but obviously your insurance agent's available. We're always on call like a doctor, I guess, kind of. But the insurance company typically will have a 24-hour claim service, or be it online, be it they're the call center. But it's always it always comes back to taking notes, right? A lot of times we have like power failures and things like that. Okay, when did your power go out? Why did it go out? Did you have to close? At what point did you close? At what point did the power come back on, right? There's time waiting deductibles on business interruption coverage. So instead of $1,000 deductible for lost income, it might be 48 hours. It could be 72 or 24 hours, right? You have to wait. So say your power came on 22 hours. Well, there's really no claim because your deductible was 24. So there's different aspects of different things there. But again, who, what, where, when, why, how it occurred, what part of the building, what part of the body, how much inventory did you lose? Was it in transit? Does that company that had it in transit have their own insurance? What income would you have typically generated through that time that you were closed? If you need to, notify the police. If it's a cyber claim, notify the police. You get on the phone with the FBI and all that. With the cyber policies, they have a cyber hotline, or employment practices. There's a hotline. A lot of it's anonymous, and you would call that, and they would help walk through the steps to secure your computer, et cetera, et cetera. If there's witnesses, ask a witness, right? Get a witness statement. The more information we have, the better. The longer you wait, the more you forget, right? So, and just by calling your insurance agent does not mean a claim is filed. It does not have a negative effect on you. Say you file a claim and it turns out, all right, everything worked out better than we thought. We didn't lose anything. The insurance company never paid out money. No harm, no foul, right? It's kind of like a claim never happened. You can have an adjuster come out to the property, say, hey, we're good, nothing's going on, right? No claim, essentially, right? Nothing paid out, no claim filed. So no negative consequence. And that's a lot of times, hey, if I file a claim, my insurance goes up. Like, well, maybe not. It's a case by case basis. So we look at severity of claims, how big it was, and also how often they're being filed. Severity and frequency is the main component of claims. It's also, we look into what you paid into the insurance bucket and what was paid out. It becomes a ratio, right? And that kind of will dictate premiums in the future. But yeah, Chris, I mean, we got to just document, make a timeline, stay in touch, report it immediately. You get looked upon kind of negatively if the claim happened and you reported it 3 weeks later. Like, well, why did it take so long?
Yeah.
What's really going on? So, but yeah, we have on our staff 3 claims advocates. So they handle the claim, start to finish. They've been former adjusters for insurance companies. And they know how to file a claim, like the certain language to file a claim with, the way to talk to an adjuster, and also to get your deductible back. Maybe it's a year later, but you get it back if it was not your fault. So there's having an advocate on the staff is important too.
Yeah, that is good to know. And I think, I mean, your point about documentation, right? This is both making sure that you've got all of this on hand, right? It's a little better, more important to have good records of your sales. So if you're talking about, well, what are your lost sales? Well, you need to be able to pull actual data and not say, oh, well, Fridays we usually make, like,
Yep.
right? We're in a very document heavy industry, so you should have that at your fingertips. And I think with all of this, right, you may not even be in the building at the time, so your staff need to know, right, like how to do this. Like everybody needs to be
Correct.
trained on it. So if there's, whether it's SOPs or you do, every new staff member gets trained about how to document things, right? We all follow the same procedure so that not just, okay, the roof fell, what do we do? But also, all right, the roof fell in, everybody's safe, we get product out of the way. You go to the log, right?
Yep.
Then you file those things because, yeah, then all of a sudden you get conflicting stories, and that's tough.
Yeah, the documentation is key. Also, the insurance company will pay you, so it's business income with extra expense, right? So, all right, hey, there's a flood coming or something like that. Flood's not a great example because flood's typically not covered unless you buy a flood policy. But the money that you spent on sandbags or preventing damage, that could be covered. If your power went out and you had to rent a refrigerated space for your food, for your raw materials, so that they didn't spoil, that would be covered, oftentimes with the insurance. Say, hey, you spent that money to prevent further damage. We're going to reimburse you for that. So there's those situations too.
Yeah, that's great. That's good to know. I'm sure
they're on your side. I mean, they want you to be safe. They want you to be back up and running. Some policies have a, coverage for a key brewer, a key distiller, or winemaker going, hey, if this person is permanently disabled or passes away, we have money on your policy to fly in others, to put them in a hotel and feed them during the interview period. The faster you can get back up and running, the smaller the insurance claim. So they're willing to help you, right?
Yeah. It's nice that they see the big picture in all this, right? That, hey, it's like, why be penny wise and pound foolish here of like, oh, well, getting operational, right? Getting back to generating revenue is as efficiently as possible.
I think you want to look at your insurance advisor, agent, your insurance carriers as a partner, right? Just like a trusted advisor, like you would with an accountant or an attorney, like, and honestly, I like to ask my clients, hey, who's your attorney? Who's your accountant? I want to meet them. I want to talk to them. I want them to know who I am so we can all work on your documents, or come tax time, you need to know how much you paid for this property, that property, or the vehicles. And, it takes a village. It's important to have everybody on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's very, very helpful to know, right? There's a whole suite of people around you.
Yep.
That you have
you have a business to run, right? And that's plenty.
Yeah.
Right. So let us handle the other stuff,
Yeah. That's where we hang our hats too in the SBDC space. Although we are certainly not providing any insurance here. So right, this is an open-ended one. Just want to hear kind of your experience. You've been in this game for a while now. With all of your experience, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people make? And then, without any mentioning any names, we don't want to air any dirty laundry here, but what are some of the most egregious mistakes you've seen, producers make when it comes to insurance issues?
I think one would be, hey, they don't report the claims on time, right? They don't take there's often times where like, hey, I didn't know that would be covered. Well, you call me, like let's talk about it.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of folks don't take insurance seriously, especially like the renewal. That whole getting ahead of things early is super important. As mentioned, we're your trusted advisor, no different than an attorney or an accountant. So lean on us. Um, I find out well after the fact that, hey, my client bought this, they signed a new lease, they sold something, they moved. Um, they're doing these things and that has a negative impact or won't be covered by their policy, right?
Mm.
All of a sudden we start selling products with hemp or THC in them, but your policy has a THC exclusion most likely, right? So we want to make sure that, that coverage it's excluded because there's a better way to cover it elsewhere, maybe with a different policy. So talking through these things early. A lot of times the insurance or the beverage maker will say, I always get my renewal, when I'm talking to like other, folks who potentially want to work with us, but I always get my renewal last minute. I always get stuck and I don't have options. Well, you probably got contacted 90 days early about, hey, let's complete these documents together. And they waited to 2 days before renewal when the underwriter now is again a pile of 100 documents on their desk and like there's not much you can do, right? So got to get those documents early. That's I try to stress that. I know everyone's got a lot of things going on, but I think that like it's not a click and here's your renewal. It's not a click and here's your insurance. It's a process that real people
Mhm.
touch the documents and they read through them and we have discussions. And if you give us time, then I can negotiate with my underwriter. Hey, can we help them out here? Can we do, versus that last minute. So again, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, like those are key numbers in our world. And the earlier we know about something, the earlier we complete documents, the better your insurance experience will be.
Yeah, that's
That would be, yeah, and that would be, I think, the main thing. And I guess the worst mistake is just again going online, buying insurance from who knows what, and assuming you have the coverage. Um,
yeah, that's a
yeah,
that's a rude awakening when something goes wrong and somebody thought that they were covered and
yeah,
they're not. And I mean that can be the end game for the business right there. I mean, it's right. These tools
yeah,
exist not just for like the big things, but the daily bumps in the road. But if something big does happen, like you
yeah,
said, flood insurance. I mean, I feel like anybody who owns a home knows that flood insurance is his own thing, but right, there's all these little wrinkles, and
right.
again,
Yeah,
especially with this industry.
policies have exclusions, so what are they, right? And how do we? A lot of times they're excluded again because it's better to cover them on a different type of policy. So
Yeah. And I guess, this is kind of the other side of this coin here. Are there any really successful experiences that you feel like you could point to any time where you feel like somebody came to you and said, "Oh my gosh, thank God we were on the same page here, or we worked ahead to mitigate this risk"? Because yeah, like is there any good example of a
yeah,
particularly tough one that you helped somebody get past?
I think there's a lot of good examples. What just popped into my head though was I had a brewery in have a brewery in Maryland that they ended up with like a stuck mash. They had to dump all their beer. It was like a 20 gallon or 20 barrel system,
Mhm.
right? So that's real money. That if a successful brew, right, that ferments and then we sell it, like it's a lot of money. So they had tackled this quick, right? Hey, we don't know what's going to happen here, but we had some issues with brewing today. I think power outage or something. Somebody hit a
Mm.
telephone pole, therefore the power went out, and therefore their brew day went awry.
Mm.
And good documentation, good details, witnesses, promptly reporting it we were able to cut them a check of something like $22,000. They had it in 3 days, and they were like, this was a giant help because we'd have to make it again. It was already sold to distributors, and this helped us pay payroll, keep afloat, and reorder raw materials, and it was quick, right? But it was really only quick because of how well they did with reporting and documenting and communicating. So sometimes that can be on you, but that's it. You know, they utilized us, they leaned on us. We came through. I always like to try to pretend, you know, let's say that, hey, we're promise keepers. So people ask me what I do for a living. I'm a promise keeper, right? So we want, you know, you buy insurance because you hope it's there when you need it. There's, you know, you pay. The insurance policy is a contract, says you pay your premiums, and in return we'll do these things. And then, you know, we communicate, we document, we get it done. And as long as it's a covered cause of loss, uh, you know, it should be fairly smoothly.
Yeah, that's a nice story, and I like that. Right, that's achievable, right? People, insurance isn't just the entire place burned down,
Right.
or you know, both my arms came off, right? Like this is, hey, a stuck mat, like people have that happen, but if it's because of power outage, because a surge, whatever, or
Yep.
somebody had, oh, like that's that $26,000. I mean, I know
Yep.
there are plenty of companies for whom that's, are we making payroll? Are we
Right.
not? Right? Like, never mind the relationship with the distributor and all that. That's
Yeah. You got to take care of your team first, you know?
mhm.
Yeah.
That's yeah, really, really helpful. Well, it's nice to hear when it works well, just how meaningful it can be for companies. So,
Yeah.
um, I guess before I let you go, is there anything, I know we've touched on a couple of things here already, but any one piece of information that you wish every producer knew about insurance or insurance providers or the industry or whatever?
One.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna give you a couple, more than one.
please.
Um, Insurance companies want to be here for you long term, right? Pricing increases are going to happen. They're not there to upset you or you know, take money from you, but it's so that they can be here 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, right? And they have reserves that they have to keep, you know, and they're on your side, right? And if you feel as if they're not, then you might have had a bad experience, right? So that again comes back to communication as well as, you know, your insurance agent or agency you're working with, right? Our goal is to help you and serve you, and you know, we work for you. um Again, underwriters, they need time, right? A lot of things, because we live in this world that is, hey, we click and we have it, like, hey, I order on Amazon and it shows up, do you want this today? Like, sure, right? Like that, we were kind of spoiled, right? But that's not the way that the insurance works. So patience is important. If you want insurance priced accurately, you want time to look at other insurance carriers, timing is key, right? Being early is always going to be important. Something that I think, um, any kind of business owner has a perception about the insurance industry. I think this is key. Um, hey, I want to get the best price, right, for my business. So I'm going to go out to 3 different insurance agents, and we're going to get 3 different bids, and we're gonna take the best one. So to my point about creating a story, right? How is your insurance being presented to that underwriter or underwriters? Now, is every insurance agent going out with the same story? Are they all painting a picture about, hey, this building has a sprinkler, it's 2 floors, it has a basement, it has fire alarm, burglar alarm cameras. Here's how they distribute. They have a common carrier who takes it. They have insurance. Hey, they host events, but here's how they have security.
Mhm.
How are these things being presented to an underwriter, right? That is what's going to get you the best opportunity, right? If you have 3 different insurance agents going out to 5, 6 different companies, you're going to get apples and grapefruit, right? There's no such thing as apples to apples either, right? Every insurance company's going to have, you know, their way that they word some enhancement to a policy, right? No insurance company is the same. So that's why I believe that it's important to have, say, you know, find your insurance agent that you like, right? Somebody that you like and trust, that has access to insurance carriers and is going to present that same story and same figures and same sales figures and same property details, all those things, management experience, hey, low turnover here, people have been here a long time, no claims, whatever. How that's presented to all those carriers. Now I can get you that apples to apples kind of from all of these, right? It's the same story, same relationships, right? Now I can bring those back and I can dissect those with you and go, hey, all right, maybe these 2 don't work, but we still have these 4. Okay, they're priced differently. All right, who wants to compete the most now? Now I can control that, for you versus having, hey, we looked at, all right, this one has $500,000 of contents under the roof. They all have $500,000 of contents under the roof. They all have $1.4 million in sales and they all have $800,000 in payroll. But as mentioned, how's your property's values calculated, right? Is there depreciation included? Is it agreed value? Is it replacement cost? Are those sales classified correctly? Hey, you might have 1.8, but is it, 400,000 on-premises consumption? Are the cans that are being bought in your tap room being considered on-premises consumption? Because that'll drive your rate big time versus being classified correctly and going out the door. Are you considered a restaurant when you could be considered the bartender class code for your payroll because your sales are 51+% alcohol, right? So there's different tiers of really everything, right? There's different classifications in every way. So is it being presented accurately? And unless you have somebody who's kind of specializing in that, you might not know. A lot of people, again, there's take a look at these 3 things. Okay, this premium's the lowest. We're going to go with that one until, okay, I didn't realize that this had this exclusion. This one didn't have spoilers. This one didn't have product recall. This one's missing an umbrella. Oh, this one forgot these 2 drivers in that vehicle. So having one agent kind of dictate that really is going to benefit you versus having multiple agents muddy the waters and multiple insurance agents. If insurance agent 1 goes to insurance company A and B, well, now insurance agent 2 can't go to A and B. They're blocked, right? So the health insurance world, everybody has access to everything. In the property casualty world, you have access to, who you gave a full submission to. So again, the bidding process, we tend to, hey, if you want to go multiple insurance agents, we're not interested because you're not going to get the best scenario. And we're not here to compete on the lowest price, right? We want to make sure you have what you need and we'll help guide you. And that's kind of that's one of those mentalities that I hope changes in the future there. But yeah, insurance is fun. It's a fun industry for anybody who is, looking to get into it, right? I think we see a lot on TV, like Geico, Farmers, State Farm, all that. That is, that's what we see. But you could work in the claims office and help predict the cost of a wildfire and how that's going to impact, claims and the insurance industry for the next 20 years, right? So there's many different things that you can do within the insurance company and in the insurance industry. I mean, I said, hey, I'm going to go insure craft beverage companies. And they're like, okay, like you can do whatever you want, right? So there's different angles. Insurance is fun. Every day is different. I'm really glad at, where I'm at. And I get, like I said, I don't have to shave and I get to wear jeans and life is good. I don't miss any of my kids' sports or events. And that's, to me, that's success. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and you're definitely helping a lot of companies get over the, the speed bumps or the big hurdles or whatever they are. So we appreciate you sharing some of your insights here. Really, really helpful information for people who are either new to this space or don't feel like they've been really getting what they need to out of working with their insurance broker. So really appreciate your time, Kyle. And thank you everyone for joining us for today's discussion. So every month we have another edition of the Craft Beverage Conversation series. You could just follow Virginia SBDC to learn about future webinars. But for now, I'd like to again thank Kyle C. Rheiner of Arthur Hall Insurance for his time and expertise.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you both. This was wonderful information today. And I want to thank everyone for attending, as Chris said, and you will receive an email with a link to the recording today. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiasbdc.org/training. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website, and we hope to see you at our next session. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. See you. Thank you, everybody. Take care.